What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mike Roach podcast, where I talk everything sports, politics, culture, and beyond. Now, folks, this episode is all about politics today. Okay. And as you can see, I have the wonderful, very smart, very intelligent Rechie Valdez. Okay. Now, Rechie is a Canadian entrepreneur, television personality, community advocate. She is the first Filipino Canadian woman elected as a member of parliament and appointed to cabinet. Most recently served as the Minister of Small Business, currently serving as the Chief Government Whip. Now, Rechie, I would continue with your accolades, but this is only going to be a 20-minute program. Okay? It's very long resume you have. First of all, it's really nice to see you, even though it's over the computer screen, and speak to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It's been a long time since I think it was up COVID time when I last saw you
Yes.
somewhere near a basketball court.
Always. Now, for those who don't know, I do know Rechie from before she was a member of parliament, and she's a huge basketball fan. She has game, ladies and gentlemen. She has game. She has a mean jumper. You want to be careful with her on a basketball court. Okay, you want to be careful. But now, Rechie, you're in some big things here now. Member of parliament, you're doing huge things. Congratulations, first of all. Congratulations. Very proud to see what you're doing. Very happy you're doing some really, really great things. And so we're going to get to right to business now. Right to business, because we have a very important election coming up in just a few days. Okay. And we're going to be discussing one Mark Carney. All right. Now, we all know, people in Canada know at this point, that Mark Carney's resume is elite. We all know that. From a resume perspective, I don't think there's pretty much anybody who can go up against him in regards to his resume. Let's just be honest about that. But with his background as a central banker, right? How does that make him uniquely suited to run a country?
Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, I appreciate you again having me on the show. But for Prime Minister Mark Carney, this is someone who has spent decades managing economies at the highest levels, not just in Canada, but of course around the world. His background, as you just mentioned, as a central banker, really positions him perfectly to navigate the complexities of what we're dealing with, whether that's trade, handling the U.S., with President Trump and his unjustified tariffs. His leadership at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England has really equipped him with the skills to manage what we're going through right now with economic stability, which is greatly needed, especially here in Canada. We have the threat of the U.S. With the tariffs, and under Mark Carney's government, we can be confident that Canada will remain strong and sovereign, which is really important in the face of these challenges. We are not here, Mike, to be the 51st state whatsoever. And with Prime Minister Mark Carney's experience, we know that he understands how to implement what I consider to be responsible tax relief that does not sacrifice the essential programs or things that Canadians really need or will prevent us from driving us into further debt. So Prime Minister Mark Carney, in my opinion, with his leadership and experience, is really the best person, best positioned to be able to help us, not just now, but into the future.
Now, you mentioned his experience a few times, but some will say that he has a lack of political experience. Now, do you believe that can benefit him in some way, or do you believe that could be a detriment to him?
I think that's a good question. The way I'll answer that is simply the fact that Mark Carney nor I are career politicians. You shared my background prior to coming into politics, and I think that's an advantage. You're talking about someone here who brings a fresh perspective to leadership. And I've been at the cabinet table with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and I'm also at the cabinet table with Prime Minister Mark Carney, and I can see the difference in their leadership styles and skills. And I would just have to say his deep experience in managing global economies and his understanding of intricacy around fiscal policy, he's best set up to have that expertise to make what I consider to be very tough decisions right now. We need a leader that can make the tough calls who can make the decisions quickly. And Mark Carney is best to be able to cut through the noise and help us focus on what's best for Canada. And I think this is something that voters out there can appreciate. You saw the numbers, Mike. This past long weekend with the advanced polls, 7.3 million Canadians came out to vote. This is huge.
That's major. That's major.
Yeah. And so this isn't about playing politics for us. It's about putting Canadians first. And that's exactly what Mark Carney and, of course, our government has done and will continue to do.
Now, can you talk to us about his vision for diversifying Canada's economy so that Canada doesn't have to necessarily rely so much on the United States?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think what's really important is you've already seen some of the work that we've done in being able to do that. He believes in a united Canada. That's one economy, not 13 separate economies. And his leadership style is really about bringing Canadians together, regardless of what region. I represent Mississauga-Streetsville, and I can tell you that unity is absolutely key. And I don't know if you saw or have been able to catch this, but since the threat of tariffs, what he's been able to do to bring together premiers from all colors and stripes come together, united as a Team Canada approach to be able to handle and to stand up against Trump and his tariffs. I mean, that's an incredible style that he has. He's been able to do that, and that's what I consider to be leadership.
Now, it's been a tough few years, Rechie, for Canadians in regards to housing and the cost of living. So what are some of the specific policies that he is proposing to address this? And not just that, but the rising crime as well.
For sure. I can kind of like break it down because you mentioned a few things there.
Mhm.
First and foremost, let's take a look at the housing crisis. It's one that we acknowledge, and it's also Prime Minister Carney's top priorities. Our government announced our housing plan, which is really to double the amount of homes that we're going to build. Our plan is the most ambitious plan out there to build homes as we did coming out of World War II. And our government is getting back into the business of building more homes. One of the things that we put forward right away is we're going to cut the GST for first-time home buyers on homes up to $1 million. I mean, I remember purchasing my first home. That would have been a huge savings for me, especially as a first-time home buyer. And our government is not just about building any homes; it's really about building affordable homes. And when it comes to the cost of living, on his first day, Prime Minister Carney got rid of the consumer carbon tax. This is massive savings for those at the pumps. And he did that because he acknowledged that this became very divisive for Canadians. And one of the first things is he cut that. I mean, this is on top of all the other policies and programs we have in place. If you're a family, the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Dental Care Plan, we have not $10 a day childcare, that we're working on across the country. All of our different policies are all about helping make life more affordable. But you mentioned something really key, and in Mississauga-Streetsville, I hear this a lot. It's addressing crime.
Yes.
The way that we're addressing crime is not just one single solution. We have to do this in a few different ways. One, investing in policing. Two, strengthening the border security. We're hiring 1,000 RCMP as also 1,000 CBSA officers. That will help us strengthen our security around the borders. We've also heard feedback from Canadians, and we're also going to be tougher on the legislation when it comes to auto thefts, extortion, and repeat offenders that we're seeing, a rise in crime. And I think ultimately by combining all these different policies together, that is what we feel will make Canadians feel more safe in our community and in our spaces.
Now, with everything that's going on, the country, as you mentioned, is a bit divided here. Do you think there will be any type of issue if Mark Carney happens to win this election with trying to unify the country so that we can become stronger?
That's a good question. I think what our approach is going to be a Team Canada approach. The issue will be if any particular province or otherwise, we may get challenges with maybe the way we approach things, but we ultimately have the same goal. One is to make sure that we have a strong Canadian economy, we have a stronger Canada, and we're going to build towards that. Sure, there's going to be a couple of things that we may experience in terms of challenges, but the key is having the dialogue. And Prime Minister Mark Carney has brought the premiers together so that dialogue is there, that we can continue to finalize agreements with those provinces and territories. But if we have the same goal, which is to stand up for Canadians, which is to support Canadian local businesses, when you have that same goal, it actually unites us. And I think that's what's going to be the more productive and progressive in terms of creating those discussions and dialogue to help us move forward. So, yeah, of course, we're going to have challenges, but it's all about having that clear goal, that clear mindset, which is really to be there for Canadians.
Now, you mentioned tariffs a few times and uniting Canadians, which lets me bring up the name President Donald Trump. Now, Mark Carney does have massive global experience. How is that going to equip him to take on a guy like Donald Trump compared to his opponent in Pierre Poilievre?
That's a great question. The Prime Minister's global experience is what I call our silver bullet when it comes to handling our relationship with the US and Trump's unjustified tariffs. I have a lot of confidence that our Prime Minister's deep understanding of those international economics will allow him to make the best decisions for our country. Now, if you contrast this with Pierre Poilievre's Trump style politics, his Trump style politics could have serious consequence for Canadian businesses and workers, and he may not have the ability to stand up to Trump the way that Prime Minister Mark Carney can and will. Under Prime Minister Carney's leadership, Canada will remain strong and respected on the international stage. Mike, we have that reputation. And you know that if you travel anywhere in the world, you say Canada, everyone understands Canada to be a peaceful country, one that's very united, and that also advocates for all other countries as well. So again, keeping us, I believe, respected on the world stage is really key. And that also helps with standing up to Trump. And the last thing I'll say is, while I just talked about breaking down those interprovincial trade barriers, especially being the former federal minister of small business, one of our greatest strengths is all of the allies that we've created in terms of making free trade agreements with many different G7 countries. Those are our strengths. And while we had those agreements, I'm finding that small business entrepreneurs are finally looking at those opportunities and saying, okay, if we can't work with the US, what other relationships do we have at our disposal? And because we have those trade relationships, more Canadian small businesses are entertaining these ideas. So strengthening our interprovincial partnerships, strengthening our partnerships internationally is key. And that's how we're going to continue to stand up for Canada.
Okay, now I got two more questions here before we get out of here. Okay, and you did kind of touch on them a little bit before, but I'm hoping you can expand on them just a little bit. We know about his resume, and we've mentioned unquestionable. But what about his qualities and leadership traits? Like, what about that does Mark Carney have that sets him aside from Pierre Poilievre? I was going to say candidates, but really, let's be honest here. There's one or the other is going to win this thing. So, what personality traits and leadership qualities do you see from him that is different? I will say from Justin Trudeau. The difference, because he has to separate himself, which he's kind of done. I don't look at them the same, but still liberal. So what is the difference that you see that you can talk to us about a bit?
If we think about where we're at right now at this point in history, in a time with threats against our freedom and our sovereignty, Canadians want a leader that actually unites us in the face of adversity, not someone who calls their country broken to score political points or to stoke anger and division. How can we unite if we're always just angry all the time? Prime Minister Carney's ability to make those tough decisions based on facts, not ideology, is something that resonates with Canadians. They want a leader that they can trust, a leader that can unite us, and a leader that inspires hope. And I actually, after canvassing nonstop for day in and day out, like, there's just this, it's a feeling that I'm getting at the doors that I've never seen actually in a really, really long time. Canadians have a sense of hope. And and they see the leadership in Prime Minister Mark Carney, and they believe that he has the leadership traits to build, again, like I said, a stronger Canada.
And so, last question here, and you kind of mentioned it a few times, but I just wanted you to bring this home. Okay, um, undecided voters, right? They're going to have to be able to put their trust in Mark Carney to deliver on his promises. And given the Liberal Party's challenges under Justin Trudeau, how do you think Mark Carney's message can kind of hammer that shut for the citizens of Canada who are about to go to the ballot box?
One of the things I value most, and you'll hear Mark talk about it often, but some Canadians might miss this, but I'd say it's important to look at Prime Minister Carney's pragmatic approach and his focus on fiscal responsibility. He saw that the consumer carbon tax wasn't working. And I mean, Emma and I was there. We were advocating for this. We thought this was the best approach at the time to handle the climate change. But Prime Minister Mark Carney saw how divisive this was, and he saw that it was dividing Canadians. And right away on day one, he got rid of it. That was a bold move for him to do. And because he has a totally different approach and vision for Canada. His track record as a central banker, again, proves that he understands how to manage complex issues and he makes the right decisions for Canada's future. Prime Minister Mark Carney helped us navigate the 2008 financial crisis. For those following what was happening out in the UK, how he handled Brexit. He has experience that can help lead us now and into the future long term. For any undecided voters out there, you can put your trust in Prime Minister Mark Carney because his actions speak louder than words, and he's here again to build a stronger Canada.
Rechie, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. Once again, proud to see everything that you're doing, and I'm looking forward to, listen, this is just the beginning for you. Okay, this is just the beginning, and so I'm really looking forward to see what happens with you and your career and everything that's going on. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Much appreciated.
3 more days, Monday,
3
April
more
20th.
days.
Get
Yeah.
out to vote.
Thank you. Get out and vote, folks.